I just want to say before we start a massive thank you to the organisers of this conference. Let's give them another round of applause because every single year, no matter how much backlash they cop, I'll stand here. Oh, sorry, okay. Every single year, no matter how much backlash the organisers cop, no matter how many times people throw at us we're crazy anti-vaxxers and we're all nutters coming together here in this, wherever we are in Canberra, they still keep going. They never ever give up. They never stop trying because this is the most important topic that we can be speaking about of our time right now. More important than climate change, okay? Because our children need their brains to function before they can even grow up old enough to enjoy this planet. So there's no point having a beautiful planet if our children are pretty much non-verbal, can't speak, severely either autistic or have chronic health conditions, have allergies, autoimmune issues. So we actually need to make this the number one topic that we're actually going to talk about for the rest of this year and going forward as well. So again, thank you to the organisers who've organised this. I know it's not easy to put this stuff together. But I have been asked to speak about the media and how we can actually change the narrative around mainstream media. And I, for one, have had a very interesting experience with the media this year, and I've learned a lot. So I feel like I'm in a good position to share a few things that I've been through, my experience, in hopes that it will help you and inspire you to actually get out there and start talking about this too and sharing your story. I don't know if you've been following the media. If you're like me and don't even watch mainstream media, that's, put your hand up if you don't even, exactly right? But they had an absolute field day with myself and my family this year because I started to run workshops of my own and I charged $200 for it, and I'm a wag because I have a beautiful husband who's downstairs who plays professional rugby league for a living. And so they dragged my family through the mud this year. I copped so much shit for it because what do I know? I'm just a mum, I'm a wag, I don't have any qualifications to speak on this. And they wanted everybody in Australia to make me look like a certain way. And the reason why I want to talk about the media is because I really want to inspire you guys to take your story back, okay? I had so many media outlets reach out to me after the very first one and only interview that I did with the Daily Telegraph that made front page of the newspaper, which I'm so grateful that it did. But I had a lot of media outlets after that reaching out to me asking for an interview, which I'll go into in a little bit. But I want to say that the World Health Organization literally have what's called a global vaccine action plan, and mainstream media are committed on that vaccine action plan to getting as many people in Australia and around the world as many people as possible in Australia and around the world vaccinated by 2020. It's called the Global Vaccine Action Plan, okay? And the media are committed to this goal of getting as many people vaccinated. So when it comes to actually changing the narrative of mainstream media, we can't do it. They're a system of their own, they're an entity of their own, they have an agenda that they're trying to push, they are bought. So there's no point for me, someone who's speaking out against this and anyone else who wants to take my advice, there's no point going up against that system because you're not going to win. They're heavily funded, got unlimited resources, and there is no point trying to fight that system. So from when I was going through my experience, and let me just point out my beautiful sister over here, that she's an important part of this story. Thanks, Dee. My sister and I, if you don't know, we're identical twins, but we both have a media background. I used to work in magazines, and my sister was an assistant producer on mainstream TV, so we know exactly how the media work. And there is a whole bunch of strategy that goes behind, whether or not I do an interview, how I actually speak with the media. So I did one interview with the Daily Telegraph, and that was basically because they were going to run any story whether I liked it or not. And I thought, I'm not going to let them say whatever they want to say. I'm going to have my say. And I carefully planned out every single response in my interview that they asked and they gave forward to me via email, because I thought if they're going to use any single word of what I'm about to say, I want to make sure that catches somebody's attention and they actually start thinking about this vaccine conversation. But then after that, I had so many other media outlets contacting me for an interview, and every single time my sister and I, my whole family would sit down and have a whole family meeting, because what's driven behind this whole Taysway movement is my family. There's no big production team, it's literally my family, because we care so much about this conversation. And every single time we came together, whether it be 60 Minutes, Current Affair, which they ambushed me, they did what they wanted to do anyway, Channel 7, Harper's Bazaar, so many media outlets contacting me, and every single time they would give me questions, and every time I would read the questions, because I would only do it over email, I didn't want to do it over the phone, I wanted it in writing so that if they were going to publish my interview, I could publish the whole interview anyway so that people can make up their own mind. But every single time they asked me a question, it was always skewed towards, how do you feel about what if your child was to contract a disease, and all of these really sensationalized questions that I just wasn't happy with. And I said to them, there was one publication in particular, was Harper's Bazaar, and I thought, oh, that's a really good publication, maybe I might actually do that one. But unfortunately, the questions just weren't up to scratch with what I actually wanted to talk about. And I went back to them and I said, until you're going to talk to me or you want to ask questions about vaccinated children in Australia, why parents are being bullied by our medical establishment, and why we are being coerced into vaccination in order to get our children into daycare, then I will do an interview with you. But if you don't want to talk about these specific points or these topics, then I'm not going to do an interview. And that is how I took my power back. I want to encourage everybody here to take back your story. The media want us to look like these crazy anti-vaxxers, and we're not. The majority of us sitting here are actually ex-vaxxers. We once vaccinated and we stopped for a reason, because a lot of us had to learn the hard way, right? I've had 2 HPV vaccines. I had my flu shots. I had a mainstream mindset, and I was completely pro-vax. Until I actually started researching this conversation, I looked into it, and then I started thinking twice, which is what many of us here have done today. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. But I want to encourage you to not buy into the fear-mongering and the negativity that the media are trying to drive behind them, throwing labels at us, and actually take your story back and saying, hey, you know what, I'm not actually an anti-vaxxer, I'm an ex-vaxxer, and this is my story. I once vaccinated because yada, 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 and this is what happened to my child. Or if you're completely, anti-vax, or you don't vaccinate, tell your story about how you are raising children with absolutely no vaccines whatsoever, and your children are so healthy, they don't have any allergies, they don't have any chronic illness, they never go to the hospital, they don't see a GP. Share your story, because the media are relying on us to not tell our story. The media are relying on us to sit here and stay silent so that they can keep telling our story for us. Keep telling everybody that we're just these crazy anti-vaxxers who don't know what they're talking about. They don't have a qualification to speak about vaccines. We actually need to come together and start sharing our story, and please use myself as an example of what has happened to me this year. Every single publication in Australia put myself down, my family down. I was called all different kinds of names, was absolutely torn down by everybody, thousands and thousands of people across Australia. And still here I am today speaking at this conference. Still I run my workshops that have sold out across Australia. If that doesn't tell you that if people are actually starting to think about this, my workshops cost $200 to come to my workshops, and they sold out across Australia. Now let that speak volumes to how many people in Australia actually want to be a part of this conversation, and how many people are actually questioning this. It's not just us as a minority. There are heaps of people around Australia who are actually questioning this, and the reason why this movement is growing bigger and bigger and bigger is because all of us have come together at one point in time and shared our story with at least one person. So I'm encouraging you guys to take your story back. My sister always tells me there is so much power in storytelling. There you go. This is my coach over here. Yeah. There is so much power in storytelling. She knew as a producer on mainstream TV, that's always what they did. They wanted to create this narrative. They wanted to create a story. Please take the power back and start sharing your story with the world. I took my power back. I did not buy into mainstream media, and I told my story. Even my husband, the first day that he signed for his new NRL team, he walked into his new club, and I was literally on the mainstream TVs that they had in the lunchroom, and I was on the front page of the paper. And he still walked into that club with his head up high, and didn't matter who would come at me. No one actually came at him, because no one does in NRL. You'd be very surprised at how many professional sports people do not vaccinate but won't say anything. So, thank you. So, he held his head up high, because he knows that whatever the media have to say about myself, himself, and our family is not the truth. We know our truth, and we're sharing our story on our own social media platforms, in the form of meeting people here today, being face-to-face with people and actually connecting, because that's the most important thing, actually being in front of people, no matter what anyone tries to say about you in the media, or even if it's amongst your friendship group. when you're actually in front of people, that's what they'll remember. So I want to encourage everybody to take their power back. And I want to encourage everyone who's watching on this live stream, to all the Olympians that keep reaching out to me, that don't want to share their story, start sharing your story. To all the celebrities who keep reaching out to me that don't want to share your story, start sharing your story. And all of the people, the business owners in Australia that with multi-million-dollar businesses who keep reaching out to me, start sharing your story. Because the reason why the schedule has gotten so big this year, and it's only increasing with them adding the flu shots on next year, the reason why our schedule is only increasing, why these legislations keep being passed in the government and no one even knows about it, is because too many people are not sharing their story, and too many people are sitting on the sidelines not actually saying anything about this. So I'm encouraging everybody who keeps reaching out to me, who's in this room, get in the actual game, start talking about this, because our children's future is literally depending on this. They are literally riding the shoulders of us, and what we're doing right now this year is going to impact their future. And do we want to leave them to deal with this mess later on, or are we actually going to start making a change right now and saying enough is enough? The vaccine schedule is completely aggressive and most of it is unnecessary. And it's not good enough that so many mothers are being bullied amongst the medical establishment and feeling like they don't have a choice. They're feeling like they have to cave to the pressure of the system, or they don't have any options. And also, I just want to add lastly, the fact that we are not anti-vax. We are for choice. I always say this, I'm for choice. I'm for vaccine injury awareness and medical freedom. I have so many mothers who reach out to me, who I coach as well, who still choose to vaccinate. And that is totally their right to choose. I respect anybody who actually wants to make an informed decision for their children. So please take back your story and actually have the courage to say, you know what, I'm not going to buy into what mainstream media are telling everybody. This is my story, this is my truth, and I'm going to say this shout it from the top of the roof, because our children are literally depending on us to share our stories, take the narrative back, and be proud of how healthy our beautiful unvaccinated babies are. I'm so proud of my children. We have so many beautiful unvaccinated babies in this room, and we need to be proud of them. Stop hiding, stop not sharing your story, and stop sitting on the sidelines, because at the end of the day, when we leave this earth, they're going to be here to deal with this mess. So it's about time we all start to come together and really start doing something about this. Thank you.